Good evening, dear listener, and thank you for joining me tonight. However, I must inform you, this dark tale isn't like the others. This one is not meant for the faint at heart, nor the squeamish, for this particular tale has the most tragic ending, where one of the two may not make it to the end of the story alive. But if you decide to continue on this journey with me, don't say I didn't warn you. So let's begin, if you dare. So this is the story of Hollowbrook House and how it was told to me. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Oh shit, oops, wrong story. Here we go. In the heart of a city that is actually not far from you stood an ancient, dilapidated mansion, untouched for decades, for no one knew who the original owners were. Its walls held secrets of a bygone era, and the neighbors in close proximity whispered of tales of tragedy and horror that had plagued the estate for centuries. Long ago, a sinister figure named Lord Malachi Hollowbrook ruled the manor with an iron fist. He was feared by all who knew him, and his cruel reign brought misery to the people living in the nearby town. As the darkness of his soul grew, rumors spread of him practicing the dark arts and seeking eternal life. One fateful night, a revolt led by the townspeople stormed the manor seeking justice for the atrocities committed by Lord Hollowbrook. The mob set fire to the mansion, but to their surprise it did not burn to the ground. It was almost as if the house had a mind of its own. But after that night, Lord Hollowbrook was never seen again, no body or any trace whatsoever, like he vanished in thin air. The townspeople believed him dead, but his malevolence lingered on, haunting Hollowbrook House. As years passed, the manor became a place of terror, and strange occurrences plagued anyone who dared venture near it. Local legends spoke of ghostly apparitions, eerie lights flickering in the night, and mournful cries echoing throughout the street. Children were told never to approach this house, for the spirits of the deceased were said to claim those who wandered too close. Here in modern times, a brave soul named Amelia became fascinated by the tales surrounding Hollowbrook House, for she was a seeker of truth and evidence to prove the existence of the supernatural. For a college assignment, she decided to unravel the mysteries that shrouded this place. Armed with determination and an old journal that she was told belonged to a past resident, she set out to explore its haunted grounds. But Amelia is no fool. Ghosts may not be the only ones lurking around in the shadows at night of this dilapidated house, so Amelia, being the big-brained individual she likes to think herself to be, brings along her childhood friend Joshua, somewhat dorky but able to handle his own. As the moon rose high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the house, Amelia cautiously stepped inside, Joshua following close behind her, a camera in his hand. "Wow, Amelia, this place is so freaky," Joshua whispers. Amelia responds, "Well, any place is freaky when the lights are out." The air grew cold and a heavy silence enveloped them both. Amelia shudders at the sudden change in temperature. She stops and opens the journal. The journal spoke of hidden passages beneath the mansion, and I really want to check them out, she says as she points her flashlight directly into his eyes. Ow, wow, Amelia! Way to blind your cameraman. But Amelia paid no mind and pointed her flashlight forward and continued down the hall. Finding a door to what looked to be the basement, she excitedly looks at Joshua. Joshua, showing immediate apprehension, shakes his head. "Oh man, Amelia, do we have to?" She nods her head while bearing a most mischievous grin. She reaches out towards the doorknob and is about to turn the handle when a door slams somewhere upstairs. Joshua jumps and looks at Amelia horrified. Amelia, startled as well, tries to think of a possible reason for such a rude interruption. "Joshua, I'm sure it's just someone squatting upstairs." Joshua, looking even more alarmed. "Well, don't you think that's all the more reason to perhaps get out of here?" Joshua says to her wide-eyed. Amelia laughs. "Maybe it's just the wind." Joshua isn't convinced. Amelia shakes her head. You're more than welcome to leave, scaredy cat. Just give me the camera." Joshua pulls the camera away from her. "And leave such a damsel in distress? I think not," he proclaims loudly and with such drama. Amelia rolls her eyes while giggling. She turns back around and swings the door open. See? Not so scary. Further they go into the darkness, making their way into the deep bowels of this old and forgotten house. Amelia began to feel an impending sense of dread taking over her, like pressure pressing up against her temples. Walking down what seemed like an impossibly long hallway, they discovered one random room to their left, but behind it they could hear something scratching. They both look at each other. Joshua whispers, "Well, go ahead." "Me?" Amelia says surprisingly. "I'm holding the camera." Amelia rolls her eyes while going into full brat mode and silently stomps towards the door. She holds the handle and shoots a look back at Joshua. "Okay, go," he says as he waves his hand towards her. She takes a deep breath and whips the door open to reveal complete darkness. She points her flashlight inside and walks in. Joshua can see her light move around in all different directions, but then suddenly it stops. A moment passes. Joshua, beginning to grow alarmed, calls out her name. Amelia?" A scuffle is heard and her flashlight drops to the ground. Joshua yells out loud, "Oh shit, Amelia!" He runs inside and is enveloped in complete darkness, for Amelia was the one with the flashlight. The silence is deafening as he stares at the flashlight laying there on the ground. He strains his ears to hear even the faintest sound, but nothing. "Amelia?" All of a sudden he feels something grab him and he lets out a shriek. Weight is thrown against him and he falls through the door onto the ground where he is immediately thrashing. He looks up and sees a hollow-eyed skeleton staring straight at him, and he lets out another high-pitched scream, and he goes to push the skeleton off. Amelia falls through the door, laughing so hard she can barely breathe. Joshua turns red as the anger and embarrassment surges through him. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" "Oh, come now, Joshua." Amelia's still laughing as she picks herself up and dusts off her pants. "That shit was funny." "What the hell is a stupid dollar store Halloween decoration even doing here?" he stammers out. "Well, I guess that satisfies my questioning. I guess, I don't know, teenagers or whatever throw parties here? Oh, it's a perfect place for Halloween." "Yeah, seems like the perfect place." He picks up the camera off the ground and checks it. "You know, you're lucky that you didn't break your camera with that stunt." Amelia plays innocent. "Come on, let's keep going," and heads off down the corridor. They venture further until they reach the end of the hall and discover a door. Joshua holds up his hand, stopping Amelia from trying to scare him again. Amelia couldn't help but smile. He goes to the door and tries to open it. "It's locked," he whispers as he looks back at her. Amelia, undeterred, steps forward and nudges him out of the way while handing him the camera. "It's locked, Amelia." Yeah, I heard you the first time, Dorcas. But you know, the good old internet can teach you anything you may ever want to know." She reaches into her pocket and pulls out 2 bobby pins. Joshua rolls his eyes as he turns the camera back on and begins to record her. "And here we have Amelia, our director, breaking and entering." Amelia rolls her eyes as she fidgets with the lock. With a click, followed by another click, the door creaks open. Amelia, grinning wide, gets to her feet and pulls the door the rest of the way open and eagerly goes inside, Joshua following. "You know, I'm actually pretty impressed." "Well, what can I say? I'm quite impressive," Amelia says with a cheeky smile. "Yeah, and humbled too." They both stop short when they see what's in front of them. A forgotten chamber with the walls being adorned with cursed symbols, and in the center of the room lay a crypt long forgotten and sealed shut. "Whoa," Joshua exclaimed. "Was this always here? How has no one found this before?" Amelia shakes her head at Joshua's words, for he was right. How has no one found this yet? Not even local kids possibly breaking into party, away from parents' prying eyes? And I'm surprised no one tried to pick the lock before. It's quite easy. Maybe they were just too chicken shit. She stops mid-sentence. Amelia's heart begins to pound. "Oh my god, Joshua, is this?" She goes to check the journal. Joshua hates being left in such suspense and patiently asks, "What? What is it, Amelia?" "Oh my god, Joshua, this is Lord Hollowbrook's final resting place." Joshua, not entirely convinced, asks, "Are you sure?" Amelia nods her head, but suddenly she felt a malevolent presence in the shadows watching her every move. She looks over her shoulder. Then a sound breaks the silence on the other side of the room. They both look in that direction. Amelia slowly raising her flashlight. A cloak flings out of sight and they both jump and stand close to each other. "Amelia, what the fuck was that?" Joshua yells in a whisper. "I don't think we're alone, Josh." Suddenly, a strong wind swept through the crypt, causing them both to drop the flashlight and the camera. Darkness enveloped them both. Amelia tries to reach out for Joshua, but hears him scream, his voice pulling away from her, and then she hears a thud like he was thrown against the wall. Next thing she knows, her feet leave the ground and she is flung in the opposite direction. No noise escaped her lips. She hits the wall and gets the wind knocked out of her. She tries to catch her breath as she digs her fingers into the dirt beneath her, but the nausea is beginning to take hold. Joshua! Silence. Then Joshua screams of agony pierce through the darkness, followed by sounds of fabric ripping, echoing throughout the room. Joshua! She screams. Candlelight flooded the room, but Josh was nowhere to be seen. A shadow moves swiftly in the corner of her eye. She turns, but nothing is there. She goes to take a step back and bumps into someone behind her. The hairs stand on the back of her neck, and her heart begins to pound in her chest as she hears the ragged breathing. Too scared to turn around, she gulps and whispers, "Joshua." She feels a bony hand grab her violently by the hair and wrenches her head back, forcing her gaze to the face of a shadowy figure. She stares straight into the eyes of a ghostly skeleton with bits of flesh hanging off in pieces. She tries to scream, but the ghostly figure wraps its skeletal hand around her throat and lifts her off the ground, her feet dangling while she struggles to breathe. It brings its face close to hers, and a snake-like tongue reaches out and traces along her cheeks. Amelia struggles to break free. The skeleton hand shakes her violently. She hears a crack. She thinks to herself, "Did my neck just break?" Before she has time to do anything else, the ghostly figure whips its head to the side and holds out its hand. Joshua, completely naked, comes flying towards them, screaming. Amelia cries out in a choking, muffled whimper, "Josh!" While she is still suspended in midair, the figure positions her face to Joshua. They both look at each other. Then Joshua's face begins to turn red as he looks down. His veins in his body begin to pop. He begins to shake. His mouth opens and he begins to scream as the flesh begins to rip and blood begins to spurt out in all directions. Amelia, shocked and unable to grasp the scene unfolding in front of her, she tries desperately to grab at the bony hands holding her so tight.
"You dare to disturb my eternal slumber?"
The apparition hissed, his voice echoing throughout the room. Amelia tried to speak but found her words trapped in her throat. Gathering all of her strength, she reached into her back pocket and pulled out the journal and held it up high and recited a random passage in the book, praying it would work. The crypt trembled, and the ghostly figure of Lord Hollowbrook wailed in torment. The curse that bound him to this world was beginning to weaken. Light emanated from the journal and pierced right through him, dropping Amelia to the ground. The light grew in intensity to almost blinding as Lord Hollowbrook thrashed and growled. Dust began to fall from the ceiling as the room shook and Lord Hollowbrook screamed. Amelia tried to move, but her limbs were not responding. Silence filled the room for one last second before Lord Hollowbrook exploded into tiny embers. Amelia covered her face and rolled to her side. She cried out as she felt the embers pelt into her back. Then all became quiet. She found herself in total darkness. Trembling and in pain, she took a moment before she sat up. She can see Joshua's lifeless body in the corner of her eye. She turns to look at him and screams out in agony. Sirens filled the night as an ambulance and police cars arrive at the scene. Unfortunately, our dear Amelia was escorted out in handcuffs, for no one believed her story. As promised, one of the two did not make it to the end of this story. So let's take this tale as a grim reminder that there are certain places with too dark of a history that are better left undisturbed. Until next time.